I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dynasty Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. We are diving into the latest news, and we're going to be continuing our Dynasty Running Back rankings. The Combine getting ready to kick off at the end of this week, so some big things going on. Only a short respite from football action, with the Super Bowl having been just a couple of weeks ago, but Dennis, I think what has my heart the most glad is this is the third straight day in the 60s here. I had forgotten what the sun looked like, but it has been delightful.
Same here. It was 50 plus today, though I'll be honest, it's payroll this week, and so I didn't really get a chance to get out much. But I got out of work at 4:30-ish. And the sun was still out, driving over to visit my mom, had the window down a little bit. It was very pleasant. We're going to have nice weather, warm weather with some clouds and some chance of rain till Saturday. Drop down cold again on Sunday. But then next week it'll be ramping back up into the 50s. So, I'm enjoying fake spring. I feel like we got, the way this year is going, we got at least 2 more big snowstorms coming. So
I'm sure. Hopefully, though, we've turned the corner, and when those snowstorms come, you end up with highs in the 30s and lows in the teens, not highs in the 10s and lows dropping off the shelf. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah.
I know we're supposed to get some weather at the beginning of next week, but we'll be in Seattle, so maybe I'll miss it. Some news to kick things off. Big doings for the Rams. Matthew Stafford has been, his agent's been given permission to pursue a trade. So that was the first domino. The next domino today is the reports that the Rams are comfortable moving forward with Jimmy G as their quarterback. I tell you, I would not share that comfort if I was the Rams coach. But how are you feeling about these dual pieces of news?
Based on what I've heard Matt Stafford wants and what the Rams want for him, the analogy I would make is that my wife also has given me permission to pursue Katy Perry. So will something happen? Maybe. Not with me, with Matt, I mean.
I was going to say, you're feeling very confident.
Now, I will say, when I was her driver, she was very pleasant. She not talkative to me per se. She always said hello and goodbye, but she did seem very, very nice. Yeah. No, I think talk is that the Rams want a first rounder plus for a 37-year-old quarterback. He wants $50 million a year, but I mean, I guess he's probably better than Aaron Rodgers. So maybe somebody's like, We'll take a shot on him and risk that back for 3 years, $150 million. I mean, who do you think? Who's a quarterback away that could afford to give up 2 first-round picks? Because if you're a quarterback away, you're probably back third, middle of the pack at best.
I mean, that's what the Rams say they want. We'll see when it gets closer to the draft. If something shakes out. I'm not as surprised that they've given him permission to try to negotiate with other teams as the report that says that they're comfortable with Jimmy G, because in no way was, a lot of people have talked about the options. Are they trying to get a draft pick to go up to get one of these quarterbacks, which I think they probably need to take some kind of development quarterback regardless, because even if you roll with Stafford, well, I didn't think that was a bad option, but that nothing, there's no there after a couple of years. So I think that would be a dicey proposition to be, rolling on. Maybe they want to get a lower tier veteran quarterback. It's hard for me to foresee that really they would be cool letting Matthew Stafford go and rolling with Jimmy G. But I mean, I guess we saw him have success with the 49ers. The entire Raiders experiment was kind of a train wreck, so it's hard to say there. They've had him for a year. I just thought that was more of a, I don't know, that felt more like posturing to me.
What did we expect? What do we expect them to say? Yeah, we're open to Stafford generating a trade, but man, we're gonna be fucked if we got to go with Jimmy G. Well,
and I thought Jimmy only signed a 1-year deal. He must be on a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I don't know. If Stafford goes, they've already said they're moving on from Cooper Kupp, and I don't know if that plays into it with Stafford. He certainly had great chemistry with Puka Nacua.
Well, there have been all the reports that they're disgruntled with his wife, and it does seem like every other headline I've seen the last month and a half has been something from Kelly Stafford, which is never a great
how
sign.
much she hates LA and all the libtards. She wants to get out of there to own the libs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
that's never incredibly great for an athlete.
Yeah. Who was the Miami cornerback whose wife was mouthy a few years ago? I forget that.
Yeah.
Who it was.
I don't remember.
Anyways, no, I think if they're gonna let Stafford go, this isn't a class to go pluck a starter out of. So yeah, they've got to upgrade on Stetson Bennett, and I think there's a couple guys later in the draft they can do that with, depending on what they want to do. The free agent class isn't stellar. So it isn't like there's, other than Sam Darnold, really, I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and, Jameis Winston. So that and God, I couldn't imagine Rodgers there. He's going to be some.
I doubt that's what Sean McVay would want either. Next bit of news, Khalil Shakir getting a 4-year extension worth $60 million, quite a chunk of it guaranteed. He looks like the most consistent of the Bills receivers. I think it's a nice extension. I don't think it necessarily is elite wide receiver 1 money. So I think it was a pretty good deal for both sides.
Yeah, I think it's he wants to be there. Josh Allen trusts him. Josh Allen likes him. He's that Amon-Ra St. Brown light kind of receiver.
I feel like he's the new Cole Beasley because for years, you had that Cole Beasley was like the guy he would rely on, kind of shooting it over the middle. And
yeah, I just feel like Shakir's better than Beasley. So yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense for both sides. The contract allows him to be with the team for the next 4 years and for them to pursue a true alpha wide receiver. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if they're going to go get T. Higgins or if they're going to try to draft prominent X out of this class, but we'll see that it leaves them options. So it was, it's a smart move for both sides, I think.
All right. But before I move on, so let's see. Cole Beasley, three chief years with the Bills, 2019, 2020, 2021. 106 targets, 67 receptions, 778 yards, 6 touchdowns, 107 targets, 82 receptions, 967 yards, 4 touchdowns, 112 targets, 82 receptions, 693 yards, 1 touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 2024, 100 targets, 76 receptions, 821 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I get it totally. I just think Shakir's a better receiver. mean, Beasley was fine, but I like Shakir better.
Yeah, he fit that system. I mean, I think Shakir has steadily stepped up, and I liked what we saw last year, but there's a reason he was like a 5th or a 6th round draft pick.
Yeah. Not super fast, not big.
Travis Kelce is returning for 2025. I'm honestly not surprised. I always thought he was going to come back for at least one more year. I still think if it's me, I'm trying to move him this offseason because I don't feel as bullish on 2026. How about you?
Yeah, if I'm rostering Kelce, I'm looking for a contender that feels like they're a player away, and I'm going to see what I can get as much as I can for him. You're probably not going to get a first rounder for him.
Although
maybe you get something late, but it feels like
dumped him during the fantasy playoffs last year, and I got a first.
That was last year. Things. It's a new year now, and now I think that at that point in the heat of the moments, late in the season, he was just starting to heat up. We're seeing old Travis Kelce coming around. I think that he's a guy that you want to try to move on from because, let me say this. There's worse things, I suppose, than him sunsetting on your bench. So, I have him. I'm a defending champion in one league, and Kelce is my tight end. I'm not sure. I'm going to go back through that team. It's a 1 QB league. I've got Tua, and I think I don't have Trevor Lawrence anymore. I traded him away, but I don't think I got Burrow, but I'm real strong at running back. It's a half-point PPR league. And so, I'm likely to try to run it back and make another run this year and keep him on the team. Let's see. Oh, Burrow's my quarterback. So I've got Burrow, Kyron Williams, Devin A. Chan, Tyrone Tracy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN, Kelce, Alvin Kamara, Tua Tagovailoa, Chuba Hubbard. So I'm in a pretty good position. I could probably use another wide receiver there. So, my backup tight ends are Gerald Everett and Kylan Granson. So I don't have squat for tight end. I would be hard pressed to move Kelce in that league because if I remember correctly, let me look. I got it open here. I've got a 2nd round, a 4th, and a 5th round pick. So I'm probably not getting one of the elite tight ends coming out either. So, but more often, if I'm not a contender, Kelce should be on the trade block. And I'm going to aim for a 1st round pick, look at a contender. Here's your piece, man. This will put you over the top. Yeah, I know he's getting old there, and you got one more year. He's still Patrick Mahomes #1. Hollywood Brown's a free agent. Rice is coming back from an injury. So it's basically him and Worthy still. No running game to speak of. That's how I'd be selling it.
I forgot when I moved to Kelce, it was part of a bigger trade. It was him and Cook for 2 firsts and 2 seconds. So, never mind. It was probably a second.
Yeah.
I was like, I had to remember because I know I have a bunch of picks from that trade. The Packers have come out to say that they are going to be forwarding a motion to ban the tush push. I believe this was tried last offseason, didn't gain any traction. Do you think it passes this year?
So here's my question. Are you old enough to remember when it used to be illegal to push players forward?
Yes.
So why'd they bring it back?
I don't know. That's the good question because sneaks and stuff have never been illegal, but it's them getting a bunch of people and just jamming you from behind, and it does lead to some significant injuries, even on the team that does it, because the Eagles center had to have surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I have a strong feeling about a team proposing that it be banned. For is that kind of soft because your team isn't good at it? Maybe.
Well, so what I would say is it would make sense to me if they ban having people push other people forward, because the tush push is hardly the only place where that happens.
Right.
Like if you were saying you were making a strike, but if they just don't allow it on a quarterback sneak and they allow, because we've seen in some places your running backs out in the open field gets hit by a safety and his teammates come and pick him up and carry him down. If you're going to tell me you're getting rid of all of that, okay, I get that. If you're just doing one specific, that does seem a little bit like sour grapes, especially from a team that lost a tight playoff game.
Yeah, I agree. I just, to me, it doesn't necessarily matter that it's the Packers or anything. It's just, I think that the bigger picture is, well, why did they change it, several years ago and start pushing them forward? And now because somebody's devised a play that uses that as a primary mechanism, now you want to ban it. I think, like you said, if you're going to ban it, it's banned in all forms. It isn't just on the quarterback sneak that it's banned. That doesn't mean, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be bad at the quarterback sneak. I mean, he still squats 600 pounds and he's 6'3" and 6'2", 230. Mark Andrews taking snaps at quarterback with the quarterback sneak. He's 6'6", 250. Those guys are, Josh Allen will still be successful at it. It's you just can't give him the push anymore.
So it was 2005 when the NFL clarified the penalty to make it only a penalty for pulling or carrying, but not for pushing. But it would be interesting. I don't remember what was happening necessarily in 2005, but that is not that long. I mean, I guess it's 20 years ago. Never mind. That is
way to go.
It's not that long enough for us anymore.
Time flies.
Sanders and Ward not going to throw or work out at the combine. Both said they're going to do their pro day. Same for Ashton Jeanty. We're getting excited about the combine. We've seen a rise, it seems, in the last few years of big prospects talking about being there and conducting interviews but not participating. Does it really matter?
From a fan perspective, that's what matters. Like, I want to see him do that thing. I want to see him run fast, lift heavy, jump high. But by and large, those things aren't good football plays. Like when I go look at combine measurements to see what traits am I looking for? I'm looking for, 3 cone drills. Like, is this guy agile? Do they have good change of direction? I suppose the broad jump and the vertical give you an idea about explosiveness, and that can be beneficial. But we see it all the time with players that have great measurements but play slow, and players that have mediocre measurements and play fast. Chris Spielman was a great example. He was never going to be the fastest guy out there, but his instincts were so good that he was always going to be in the right place at the right time to make the play. David Montgomery, another example. He's not going to bust a 90-yarder because, virtually everybody on the defense can run him down. But he's going to get a whole bunch of 20-yarders, and he's really slick inside the hole when he's running through contact. He's got exceptional lateral agility to be able to force missed tackles, even though he ran like a 4.6 140. So, we're not looking for that. We're looking for people that can execute football moves. Is it great? Like, I remember several years ago when Mike Kudla, defensive end from Ohio State, set the record for the bench press. And this was a 260-pound defensive lineman. He wasn't one of these monster behemoths, but he put up like 43 or some sick number. You know, do you remember Mike Kudla in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was great. He walked away with the record. I mean, it's like John Ross in the 40. You know, it seems like Xavier Worthy is on the way to breaking that curse.
Stigma. Yeah.
But, you know, we'll see. Worthy was not noted for having great hands, and so we could see him come out next year with a case of Butterfingers all year and fade away.
Or they could end up with a stronger group of receiving weapons. You never know. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The combine will kick off. You know, most of the skill position groups will go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll end up talking about it when we come back. But you know, I always think the combine probably is a better chance for tweener prospects to rise. You know, guys
Correct.
who may have been on the fringe that needed that extra push than really for the bigger prospects. And we've seen a couple of guys that were decently rated prospects put up some. Isaiah Spiller comes to mind, put up some poor combine numbers and have it kill them. So I sort of get why some of these guys, you know, they're going to do their pro day where it's maybe a little more controlled and the focus is all on them and people are coming to see them. They're going to go do the interviews, but not do some of the drills. I just wonder, there's such a limited number of people that get a combine invite. It kind of makes you wonder if they could have the players that declare they're not going to participate in drills and maybe have that open up spots for some other guys to get a chance to at least come and show some things.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Quinn Ewers said he's going to throw. I would expect Will Howard.
Dart's going to throw. Howard's going to throw. They all three of them said they're going to participate.
You know, Tyler Shug.
But those are guys that are trying to change your mind about who there's probably no benefit for Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders right now, because if they don't look good compared to the other two, all they've done is screw themselves.
Right. They need, and I guess if Jackson Dart was a legitimate threat to their standing as a top 5 pick, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to throw," then that might put some pressure on him to do it.
Yeah.
But you know, I think as a young athlete, you have to use all the leverage you can to put yourself in the best position to maximize your earning power, because your career is typically short. There's not a lot. Offensive linemen tend to have a little bit longer career, but not many of them have 21 years like Jason Peters as an undrafted free agent.
Well, last year we saw Caleb Williams didn't participate in drills. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't do drills. Really didn't impact their draft status. They both went top 5.
If I remember correctly, I don't think Marvin Harrison did drills at his pro day either.
No, I don't think he did them anywhere. And I was trying to think. I don't think Jaden Daniels threw at the combine either.
So I don't think so.
But well, let's shift our focus. We're in the middle segment of our look at Dynasty RBs. We're going to cover numbers 50 to 26. So, Dennis, why don't you kick it off with 50 to 41?
All right. So I got your guy, Audric Estime, at 50. So, you know, as I was doing my rankings, you know, these are Dynasty rankings. So I tended in that first group, I had a lot more veterans. Could they have better years next year than some of the guys in this group? Yeah, there's some guys in there, Antonio Gibson, you know, Cam Akers, you know, who are some of the other older guys? Kenneth Gainwell. Some of those guys may have better 2025s than some guys in this mix. But I think looking for over the next 2 or 3 years, I'm going to err on the side of youth. So I've got Audric Estime, who, depending on what Denver does in the draft, I think has a chance to be the Mark Ingram half of the Sean Payton backfield. And if he can hold up, if he can do the right thing, stay out of the doghouse, you know, that could be productive, and he could easily outperform this RB 50 ranking I have. Number 49, I've got Isaac Guerendo. San Francisco there are several teams, like the Jets were one where, there's a couple guys that are backups that you just got to kind of pick what order are you going to put them in. And they're kind of close enough that you don't necessarily know which one's really going to get the work because they're probably not going to split it evenly. So you're rolling the dice. So I've got Guerrero at 49. Green Bay, I got Chris Brooks. Green Bay's backups are all, technically Jags, but they're playing well in that offense when they get a chance. However, Josh Jacobs, if he's healthy, doesn't give him a whole heck of a lot of chances. Dude's a ball hog. So I got Chris Brooks right in front of him, number 47, Emmanuel Wilson, the other backup in Green Bay. Again, I just talked about, how these backups could shake out. 46, oh, looky. Jordan Mason, San Francisco 49er. So now I've got Guerrero and Mason. It feels like Mitchell is gone. And I think Guerrero and Mason will be the backups to McCaffrey going into 2025. Number 45, I've got Austin Eckler. He was RB 25 through week 12. But man, if I'm being honest, he didn't look great these last two seasons. It looks like, the 5'10", 205 pound, 5'9", 205 pound Eckler. The hits have started to add up. He doesn't look super shifty. Still, hands are great, can still catch the ball, but he just doesn't feel like what speed he did have. And he was never known as a burner. Just feels like it's pretty much sapped. 44, Trey Benson. They signed Connor to a new contract, and Connor's been relatively healthy his time in Arizona, and that's been good. They've had a couple other backs they've sprinkled in, but it feels like they drafted Benson to be the successor to Connor. At least that's what we all kind of felt. And then they signed Connor to an extension. So let's see how that shakes out. Somebody's got to be the number 2 there, and it feels like Benson to me. Number 43, Jalen Wright. I could be off on this one by 15 places maybe. Feels like he could be the number 2 in Miami. And while nobody has the package that is Devon Achane, Wright timed fast. He's got the speed to break away. He's got some size like Mostert had. So it feels like he's going to slide right into that second back. I think they still have Jeff Wilson there to serve as their third back. They let Mostert go. But I like Jalen Wright. He's somebody I could see move up. 42, I got Blake Corum. I struggled with having Corum this low, but ultimately, if Kyron Williams is healthy, Blake Corum isn't going to get a lot of work. That's just the way Sean McVay does it. Next year, that'll be 3 years of Kyron Williams, #2 to 3 year window. Shout out Dynasty Nerds. Williams is a 5'9", 200 pound running back who's carried a pretty significant workload. So Corum could be ascending, into 2026, or depending on how Williams holds up, even in 2025. Number 41, I got Roschon Johnson. As it sits right now in Chicago, he's the 2. He's the, I don't want to say receiving back because Swift is a good receiver, but it feels like Swift is the more powerful runner, even though Johnson is the bigger back. But we've also seen when Swift gets used like that, he can get nicked up and break down a little bit. I think going into year 3, I think Johnson, it's put up or shut up time for him. We've seen in Detroit, Ben Johnson wants to use that two backs that do similar things. And I think Johnson and Swift both have fairly similar skill sets. I think Johnson's a better pass blocker than Swift, and some of that comes from being 25 pounds heavier. But I got Johnson at 41. Was that where I was going to, 41?
Yep.
Okay.
41. All right. So
I got to listening to myself talk and was thinking, man, listen to that guy talk. I forgot how far I had to go.
For me, my first three here are some veteran guys who I think are nearing the end of their useful fantasy life, but I think will still probably have roles in production. I actually have Miles Sanders up at 50 because we saw him make a resurgence at the end of last year, and I think he's going to go in, and they're pretty comfortable with him and Chuba Hubbard. I like Chuba Hubbard obviously better, but the big unknown is a guy that I have a little bit higher up on this list that is complete wild card that we probably won't see next year. I've Gus Edwards at 49. He's still got another, kind of low money commitment contract year in with the Chargers. I think he's kind of a plotter. He is what he is. It doesn't light the world on fire, but he's still, a low end productive player. Nick Chubb, I have him at 48. I struggled with where to put him. I still think there's potential for him in the right situation to be a contributor. He's obviously past the phase where he's going to be carrying a backfield. The Browns were such a dumpster fire last year, and he was coming off that injury. It was hard to tell. I know he had another injury, but a broken foot feels a lot different than the catastrophic knee injury he was coming back off of last year. And then 47, I have Jonathan Brooks. He was the first running back off the board in the draft last year. They tried to really baby him and bring him back, and he blew his ACL anyway after not seeing him do much. I don't think we'll see him at all in 25, which means he'll have 2 NFL years with really nothing to show for it. But I don't think you can just outright release him. I think, if you drafted him, you've got to carry him and wait and see how this shakes out, at least through this offseason and into next season, to see how the rehab progresses. It's very possible he ends up kind of having a lost NFL career, but there was reasons we were optimistic about him and optimistic about him when the Panthers took him. So I'm not ready to completely give up. I have Isaac Grendo at 46. I like you. I think he's a good, solid backup. I think any running back that we've seen get into that system that they like is worth a stash because, when we've seen them pop out and be useful elsewhere. I mean, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, guys from that system have gone out and been useful elsewhere. I have Jerome Ford at 45. I believe he's going into free agency as well. He's kind of a good contributing back. We've seen the last couple of years with the Browns. He is not a lead back, but kind of a low end flex. I struggled a lot with running backs because I think almost everything's a committee, and you're just looking for playable guys sometimes, and that's how it felt when we went through the season too. 44, I have Rico Dowdle. I loved what I saw from him last year. He is also a free agent. Does he go to a situation where he gets the radical number of touches? He didn't have that before last year. Dallas was desperate. Ezekiel Elliott wasn't it, so they gave him a workload like an RB1. Does somebody else see him that way? A lot of questions for me with that. Audric Estime at 43. I liked what we saw from him. It gave me pause that in the playoff game they chose to make him a healthy scratch so they could have Tyler Beatty active. That tells me there are some concerns still, and they weren't sold that his skill set was vital to that offense. I think Denver's backfield is a work in progress. You'll see I have all of the members that were in that backfield pretty low on this list. I have Austin Eckler at 42. I like you. I think, he's a fine fit and contributor, a good veteran. Washington, are they going to get another running back? Maybe, but does it really matter? Jaden Daniels, this has become another situation where the quarterback's going to take a fair amount of the rushing work. You're always going to see Eckler kind of splitting probably with somebody else, Brian Robinson Jr. or somebody else. And I think he probably has a couple years left of at least giving you flex value. At 41, I have Jordan Mason. I know you had him lower. He is a restricted free agent. So I do think San Francisco will probably tender him. But given what we saw of his production stepping in for Christian McCaffrey, depending on how the 49ers tender him, I would not be shocked to see another team make a run there, given that it's a weird league, a weird set of running backs. I thought he looked really good when he was healthy and carrying that backfield. And there is an opening. And The other thing is, even if he's back in San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey, it's not a lock to stay healthy, as we've seen
Right.
these many years. Why don't you give us your 40 to 26?
All right, so slipping in at 40, Javonte Williams, a free agent. Though there was a blurb on RotoWorld today out that Denver could be open to bring in Javonte Williams back. I'm not sure I buy it.
No, they are 100% not. No one who's actually here thinks he's coming back. All of the beat reporters said that was his last game. He said like a farewell too at the end.
Right.
I think he knows.
I think Williams has a potential to be a committee back and put up, reasonable, RB3 numbers on a fairly consistent basis if he can get the consistent work. Who knows? We'll see what happens. 39, I got Tyler Algier. He finished his RB 43 last year. So I feel like there'll be, that means there's going to be a little more work for him. Algier's going into his 4th season. I'd love to see him leave after this year and go somewhere where he gets a chance, a la Michael Turner, to be the guy. He's a big back. Again, he's a 4.58, 4.6 guy, not super fast, but he's a good pass catcher, good blocker, good runner. He's just not Bijan Robinson, and that's what happened to him. So I think Algier is somebody that if I can get him thrown in a deal and stash him for another year just to see what happens, I'd be willing to kind of take a look. The downside is what they're talking, 21, 24 running backs out of this class could be contributors. So, it's a deep running back class. We'll see what that actually means. 38, I got Rico Dowdle. It'll be interesting to see where he signs. He's somebody I could see maybe Los Angeles Chargers. He might be a decent fit there. They need something, and I think he's a back that could handle 50% of the work. I don't know if he could handle 60, 65%, but he's got a little bit of juice to him if you can keep him healthy. Good pass catcher. 37, Braylon Allen. I had Isaiah Williams back, I think, in the last show. I think Breece Hall is going to be better this year than last year. He's coming second year away from the injury. Quarterback situation's a mess, but it feels like they'll try to run the ball while they figure out what's going on at quarterback. Who knows what the quarterback's going to look like in New York? We'll have to wait and see there. 36, Jaylen Warren. Word came out today that the Steelers are going to tender Jaylen Warren. We don't know at what level yet, so they're protecting themselves if they want to bring him back. I think Warren showed he can be a good second back. Every time they try to use him at volume, he's not holding up. So he was a college free agent coming into the league, and I think he's got a nice story. He can be a good committee back contributor. Jerome Ford at 35. When Nick Chubb went down, Ford stepped up. Does he have some flaws to his game? Man, dude's fast if he can run straight ahead, but if he's got to go side to side a little bit, he gets a little bit wobbly. But he's a good pass catcher. He works, to me, I think he works good as a 1A kind of back because he's big enough to handle volume, but I don't think he is a guy that you want to give 25 touches a game to. 34, I got Tyjae Spears. I think him and Pollard are still going to be splitting work. What's that split going to be? I think it would have been a little more even last year if Spears had maintained his health all year, but, c'est la vie. 33, I got Ray Davis, friend of the show. I think he performed awesome last year. He came in, he's not tall, but he's not little, 5'9", 212 or something. So he's a solid guy, catches the ball well, has good speed, good in short yardage. very nice compliment to James Cook. But when James Cook's putting up 20 touchdowns, that's always going to hamper the ability of, or the fantasy prospects of a guy like Ray Davis. At 32, I got Zach Charbonnet. I know we disagree on Charbonnet, but I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker time in Seattle as long as he can hold up. I think Walker fits the new offensive scheme that coordinator's historically ran better than Charbonnet. But it's not like Charbonnet is going to disappear. He's still going to be the number 2 there. He's going to get some good work. 31, I got Rachaad White. As good a pass catcher as he is, he's not a good runner between the tackles at all. Does not have good vision. And I think Bucky Irving just sort of took his lunch money, and it is what it is. He's the number 2 guy there now. I don't think they're going to put him in to force him in 2-minute situations because Irving has shown the ability to handle the passing game. He's a good pass catcher, but I still think White's going to get some usage. At 30, Tank Bigsby. I had Bigsby about 10 spots lower during our last show, and the more I thought about it, could Jacksonville go out and get one of these young stud running backs? Sure, they could. Bigsby's not a threat in the passing game, but he's a literal tank. He's a guy that's going to run hard. We've seen him have some 20-plus point games last year. ETN, he's who he is. He was kind of miscast, I think, as he's a pass catcher because he caught a significant amount of passes in college. Unfortunately, they just weren't like route running passes. I do think that ETN has more upside with his speed and breakaway ability, but I think Bigsby's going to be the grinder in that offense. 29, I got Isaiah Pacheco. Right now, he's still the top dog in Kansas City. He didn't look good coming back. Kareem Hunt basically pushed him aside. J.K. Dobbins, 28, another free agent, finished his RB 24 last year. Missed 4 games. I'm pulling for J.K. Dobbins. I don't know if the Chargers will re-sign him. It feels like because of the injuries he's had, he's looking at several years of 1-year prove-it contracts. Maybe he ends up getting a 2-year deal somewhere along the way. But he still showed that if he's healthy, he's got some pop to him. He's got some breakaway speed. Maybe not the long speed, which, to be fair, in college, he wasn't a guy that was going to take it 90. 27, free agent Najee Harris. To me, he's Joe Mixon. Historically an inefficient back, but at 6 foot and 230 pounds, he can take a beating. He gets better with volume. If you've got a team that's defense is strong enough to keep your offense in it, you can grind it out with Najee Harris. And so we'll see. I'll be interested to see where he lands. I haven't heard anything out of Pittsburgh about them tendering him yet. So he's going to be an interesting one to watch. And at 26, I got Brian Robinson Jr. I think that they'll add somebody to the mix. We'll see what happens with Eckler. It feels to me like with the ascension of Jaden Daniels and his rushing ability and his ability to get the ball downfield to Terry McLaurin, their professed desire to beef up that passing game. I'm not saying they're going the Kansas City route, but it does feel like their emphasis is going to be on the passing game, not on the running game.
Yeah, so for me, I, like you, have Javonte Williams at 40. It's a bummer for me. I liked him coming out. I loved that pick by Denver. I thought he had a great rookie year. We've just never really seen consistency since then. I think he's going to end up on another team. Maybe he finds some place and hits, but it just sometimes you have to recognize they are what they are. At 39, I have Jaleel McLaughlin. I actually think he's probably the best of what the three Denver running backs were, and I think he's probably the most likely to retain value and playing time if they go get a bigger back. He looked the best down the stretch, both as a runner and as a playmaker, which is interesting. I think if he can improve as a pass blocker, he would have been out there even more. And they would have put Williams to the bench even more. I think the only reason Williams was out there sometimes was because they felt he was a better pass blocker, and that's something that can come with time. He took a stride there this year. I have J.K. Dobbins at 38. He could have another great season. I feel like 2024 was about as perfect as things could go for him. I don't think he goes back to the Chargers. I still wonder how many games you get out of him for season. He might be entering that change of pace committee kind of area. And like you said, maybe he wasn't always the fastest, but his first couple of seasons, he averaged more than 5.7 yards per carry. Last year was more like 4.5. He started stronger than he finished too, seeing how the season wore on. So I have some long-term questions. I have Ray Davis at 37. I love what we saw from him last year, but Buffalo used a couple of different backs in relief of James Cook, and Cook really had a preeminent role as a runner, and they are definitely a team where, if not their best running back, at least 1B is their quarterback, Josh Allen. And even with other running backs stepping up and producing, that didn't really change in terms of touchdowns and the kind of things that propel you forward in fantasy. 36, I have Isaiah Pacheco. Terrible year for him last year. He wasn't doing great before he broke his leg, and he was a non-factor when he came back up to and including the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are going to address the running back position. Pacheco, you have to remember, was a 7th round pick. He's going into a contract year. I wouldn't be surprised if this is it for him with the Chiefs. And what kind of a long-term value or career does he have? That's been a dropper for me. I have Tyjae Spears at 35. I thought he mixed in well in Tennessee. Be curious to see, when they get a different solution at quarterback and are reshaping that offense. Maybe you're right, if he stays healthier more, will it be more of a split with Pollard? But it's hard to get a good feel about him being a consistent. I had a couple of teams where he was my RB3, and I was hopeful that I'd be able to use him, and it just didn't always materialize. I have Blake Corum at 34. Didn't have a huge role as a rookie, but you know what? We've seen a lot of decently drafted Rams rookies, running backs, not really do much their first year and take a bigger chunk in the second year. Kyron Williams going into year 4 of his rookie deal, be a free agent after the season. Do they keep him? Do they just run him out and get ready to transition? Corum was taken in the 3rd round last year. That's pretty decent draft capital. I expect him to have a bigger role this year. I have James Conner at 33. I think he's still productive, but he does miss time. Suffered a knee injury that kept him out of games last year. They did give him an extension, but if you look, it's not a huge money commitment. They could easily get out of it after next year. They have Trey Benson there. So I don't feel a great deal of long-term security. While I think he'll have probably still good use in a decent 2025, he's another player that if I got a good offer for or could move, I would not feel that bad moving on this offseason. Braylon Allen, kind of the reverse for me. I thought he had a bigger role than I expected as a rookie. I thought he looked good there. Breece Hall, another player that's coming into a contract year. He was a 2nd-round pick, so only a 4-year rookie deal. The Jets were such a mess last year, and they're completely, it seems, starting over on offense. I still have a lot of questions about kind of some long-term viability, and that makes me interested in holding Braylon Allen because he could have a chance to take a step up. I have Ramondre Stevenson at 31. I've liked him. I had him higher last year, did not have a great year last year. They cleaned house, but Josh McDaniels is their offensive coordinator, and we haven't always seen that be exceptional for running backs. They tend to use a lot of committees and different aspects like that. Ramondre Stevenson is another guy who has a contract that isn't a huge dollar value commitment. I expect he'll be there in 25, but they could elect to move on and take only a minimal hit in 26. And after 26, he has no guaranteed money. It would be zero to get out of that deal. So is there long-term security? Are they going to see how he fits with what they're trying to do? Tyrone Tracy at 30. Some people might think this is low. I definitely was impressed by what we saw last year, but the fact that the Giants are one of the first teams to be doing an interview with Ashton Jeanty gives me what I suspected, that they are not satisfied with the running back room that they have or the quarterback room that they have, and I would not feel confident at this point that Tyrone Tracy, who was a late round pick that bloomed for them, is a lock to be a workhorse back there in that offense. You know, we saw Brian Dable, when he was with Buffalo, take backs in the middle rounds year after year and work them in and do committees. You know, he had Singletary, he had Moss, he had somebody else I know I'm forgetting. I would not be shocked to see them add another body and be in a timeshare. I have Rachaad White at 29. I, like you, have dropped him back a little bit. Another guy going into a contract year who got usurped by another back on his own team who proved to not only be a better runner, but a more than capable receiver. I think that really eats into White's potential upside. I have Tyler Algier at 28. He's probably the best backup running back in football right now. But like you said, another guy going into a contract year. And I think if you're holding him in Dynasty, he's a decent low-end flex option as it is. And there is good potential that he could get to do something more if something happened to Bijan Robinson, or at the end of the year if he gets to move on to another team. I have Trey Benson at 27. I still like all the things that I liked coming out in the draft. He didn't have a huge role last year, but he started to get worked in a little bit more at the end of the season. I think there's going to be more of an even split with Connor this year, and eventually he will be the one taking over. And then I have Tank Bigsby at 26. Tank Bigsby, an interesting one. He couldn't have had a worse rookie year. But last year, he quite frequently looked like the best of the Jacksonville running backs. Jacksonville's changing scheme, but I have no feel for what they're doing in their backfield. They feel like kind of a weird mess, so he is the one I landed there. I know you are getting ready to go, so I'll ask you just a couple of questions. Who is the biggest riser in this group for you?
So in this group, for me, I went with a lot of young guys that I feel like could ascend. I don't know that any of them have like legitimate, RB1 top 10 kind of capacity. I think given, the right circumstances to get volume, could that happen for some? Yeah, but I don't know. So guys, when I think back to like who my biggest risers were, I'm comparing it to last year. So I had Tank Bigsby as a rise, one of my biggest risers, and Ray Davis. Both of those guys, we just didn't really know. Bigsby was coming off of such an awful rookie season. We weren't sure what Peterson was going to do. And when I agree with you, he got in there and he looked like the better back for the better part of the season. So he runs hard. Yeah, he could probably work on his pass catching. Ray Davis came in. There was some feelings that it was going to be Cook getting a lot more volume. Well, Cook finished really high in fantasy. A lot of it was touchdowns. He didn't necessarily get the volume we expected, I don't think. And Josh Allen takes a lot of it, but I think Ray Davis was a guy that I think moved way up my rankings because of what I saw from him last year, what I expect this year.
Yeah, mine would have been Bigsby because terrible rookie year, but he only finished less than a point off of what Travis Etienne did last year, made some huge strides. Who is the biggest faller for you?
Probably Austin Eckler. I feel like I'm so out on him. Could he still put up a top 36 year? Sure. I've got him at 45. I feel like I just feel like, man, he just looks so stiff and slow. I think he's going to get a shot, and we may see some decent games. If you roster him and he comes out week 1, week 2, week 3, has a couple good games, man, get out.
Yeah, I think for me it's Javonte Williams. Once upon a time, I had him as high as in my top 12, and now I have him at 40. And I often think to myself that I only have him there because of my deep charitable love for him. Because depending on how this offseason goes, he could fall right out of the top 50. Who is one guy in this group? If things break right, you could see jumping up to the top 25.
Initially, I was going to go with Estime, but I just don't think he'll get enough passing work. And so I went with Jerome Ford. We've seen Jerome Ford take over for Nick Chubb. And while they didn't always, he got dinged up a little bit, they didn't always feel like he was a guy they could count on 100%. I think over the last couple seasons, he's really kind of locked in and shown them, look, I'll do whatever you guys need. I can catch the ball. I'm fast. I can run it. I'm big enough. I can block. And, with the likely departure of Nick Chubb, and the other guys there, it just feels like Ford has a fairly clear path to workload. And if they can get anything going at quarterback, he could really shoot up.
Yeah, well, and that'll be I guess he does have one more year. I thought for some reason he was a free agent, but you're right, he has one more year with Cleveland. Well, that'll do it for us today. We will be back on Thursday looking at the top 25. But if you have a couple of lonely days, Dennis, what can the people do?
Go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a follow, subscribe, like it, leave a rating and a review. Last checked, what did I say we were at? A 4.6 on
I think 4.7
ratings.
Yeah. Well, and please feel free to drop comments. Who are we too high on? Who are we too low on? Who are you bullish and excited about? You guys follow your teams very closely too. Always interested to hear everyone's opinion, especially as we get ready to go through this fun Dynasty offseason. But that'll do it for us today, and we will see you on Thursday. Until then, have a wonderful week.